The sky over Nevada was a strange, electric gray, unnatural in its stillness. The clouds didn't move. Birds had vanished. Silence, heavy and waiting, blanketed the desert as if nature itself held its breath. At the edge of a decommissioned military testing ground stood a solitary man, arms crossed, face weathered by both time and regret. Marcus Cade watched the horizon, where the sky had cracked open 3 hours ago. The breach hadn't made a sound when it appeared. A seamless rift in reality, like a glass door sliding open to an alien corridor. Through it had come the delegation, 7 beings, each more unsettling than the last. They hadn't spoken with mouths, but through the minds of the entire planet simultaneously. Their message had been simple and terrifying. Earth has been observed. It must now stand trial in the arena. Present your champion. The declaration had ignited chaos. Within moments, communication lines between every global power lit up in panic. World leaders scrambled to form a coalition, desperate to understand what the arena was, who these envoys were, and whether this was a war declaration in disguise. But Marcus hadn't waited. He'd heard enough in those first 10 seconds. Now, as a gust of wind finally disturbed the sand, he turned his back on the horizon and walked toward the makeshift encampment behind him. It was barely organized. Military tents pitched in haste, a few scientists pacing nervously, and ranking officers whispering under the weight of interstellar pressure. One of them, General Harrow, noticed Marcus approaching and stiffened instinctively. He hadn't expected Marcus to show up. "You sure about this?" Harrow asked, voice low. "This isn't some simulation in a VR pod. You're not on active duty. Hell, you're not even on reserve." Marcus met his eyes without flinching. "That's exactly why I'm sure." Harrow looked like he wanted to argue, but didn't. He nodded once and pulled aside the flap of the central tent. Inside, the 7 alien emissaries hovered in silence. They weren't symmetrical. Some had limbs that shimmered between dimensions. Others pulsed with light through translucent bodies. All turned toward Marcus the moment he entered. "This is humanity's offering," a voice said directly into his skull. "I'm not an offering," Marcus replied. "I'm a man, and I heard you're looking for one." For a brief, queasy moment, something like amusement passed through the link. The air temperature dropped a few degrees. "You are unaugmented, unmodified. You represent a biologically average member of your species. That's what makes this honest." Behind him, Harrow shifted uneasily. He didn't understand. None of them did. Marcus Cade had once led the Earth's most elite infiltration unit. He'd been decorated, then forgotten. A decade ago, a Black Ops mission had gone sideways. 8 good people dead because of a politician's interference. Marcus had walked away from everything. The medals, the promotions, the politics. For 10 years, he'd lived in self-imposed exile, fixing broken turbines in backwater towns and drinking cheap bourbon under fake names. Now, the galaxy wanted a champion. "I'll fight in your arena," Marcus said. "Not for Earth's governments. Not for politicians. For its people. For the ones who won't even know what happened here." Silence. Then, the central envoy, an enormous being whose eyes burned like twin stars, floated forward. "Then let it be recorded. Marcus Cade of Earth enters the arena of judgment. Challenge accepted." The rift outside rippled. "You leave within the hour," the envoy continued. "There will be no substitution." Marcus nodded. He turned and left the tent. Outside, the world was watching. Satellites had picked up the rift's signal and beamed it to every screen on Earth. His face was already being analyzed, dissected, criticized, deified. He didn't care. He'd made peace with his legacy the day he buried his squad. Now he only had one thing left to give. A medic approached him with a sterile kit. "Sir, they want to run baseline tests, maybe issue some." "No tech," Marcus said. "No implants. No drugs. No suits." The medic hesitated. "You'll be fighting aliens. Monsters from what we've seen. That's why it needs to be me." He sat on a crate, breathing in the desert air. He watched the wind stir dust devils across the flat, broken earth. Every breath steadied the noise in his head. He was older than most soldiers, slower than his prime. But he remembered how to hurt, how to adapt. He remembered fear and how to bury it. Harrow came to stand beside him. You could die in minutes. You realize that. Marcus gave a dry smile. I've already died. This is just the part where I get back up. A technician motioned from the tent. It was time. He followed them out to the breach. The rift pulsed gently, as if inhaling. Beyond it, Marcus could see nothing but darkness. Then a flicker, a vast structure, metallic and alive, orbiting an enormous star. The arena. No stairs, no ramp. Just a threshold. He turned once, looking at the people behind him. Soldiers, scientists, politicians, all standing there with wide eyes, powerless. He didn't wave. He didn't salute. Instead, he said one last thing before stepping through. Make sure they remember we didn't beg. And then he was gone. The moment Marcus stepped through the rift, sound returned like a thunderclap. The world on the other side hit him with the weight of alien gravity and artificial atmosphere. He stumbled but didn't fall. Ahead stretched a corridor of impossible geometry, walls that shimmered in and out of visible spectra, floors that responded to his footsteps with subtle adjustments, like it was learning him with every move. Lights blinked to life, a guide or a test. He followed them. At the end of the corridor, a chamber opened wide. He stepped into it and immediately felt a shift, as though his presence triggered ancient machinery. The ceiling retracted. The floor lifted. Suddenly, he stood in the center of a vast coliseum, circular, silent, impossibly massive. Rows upon rows of beings from dozens of species observed from grand balconies, their features hidden behind shimmering shields. A voice echoed across the arena. Earth has answered the summons. The champion stands alone. The crowd didn't cheer. This wasn't sport. This was ritual. Trial by combat, judged by spectacle. And humanity had just laid its soul bare through one man. Marcus looked up at the arena walls, and for the first time in a long time, he felt no fear. He felt clean. Whatever happened next would be honest. Brutal, perhaps, but true. The floor beneath him shifted again. Symbols he didn't recognize flared around him. A countdown, maybe a declaration. Above the arena, a single phrase burned into the artificial sky. Let the judgment begin. The chamber Marcus stood and lowered with a mechanical grace, bringing him deeper into the structure. The arena above vanished from sight, replaced by a labyrinth of metallic corridors and alien architecture. Light pulsed along the walls, soft, rhythmic, responsive. As he moved, it guided him without words. He tried not to be impressed, but the scale of everything pressed in around him. The place felt ancient, yet alive. Somewhere behind the design, behind the smooth, seamless surfaces and the calculated beauty of the environment, there was an intelligence. Not cold, but not entirely welcoming either. Observing. The corridor widened into a vast vestibule with open air and a tiered amphitheater. At the far end, an elevated platform shimmered with shifting holographic glyphs. From behind a translucent field, a humanoid figure emerged, slender, tall, with skin like polished obsidian and veins of cobalt light. Its eyes pulsed once and focused on Marcus. I'm Cyrex. I am assigned to your orientation. Its voice echoed, not in his mind, but aloud, crisp and precise. You may speak freely. Marcus crossed his arms. I'm not much of a talker. That is acceptable. Many species process trauma differently. Didn't say I was traumatized. You were observed upon arrival. Elevated heartbeat. Increased cortisol. Symptoms consistent with what your species defines as stress. Marcus smirked. Congratulations. You can read a heart rate. Cyrex tilted its head. You are combative. I'm a soldier. The statement hung between them for a moment. Then Cyrex gestured, and a three-dimensional projection appeared between them. A model of the arena, vast and tiered, floating in orbit around a trinary star system. Dozens of combat rings dotted its structure like mechanical petals around a sun. You will be evaluated through a series of trials. One-on-one combat, survival scenarios, and variable response challenges. These determine not only your viability, but the sociological adaptability of your species. Marcus studied the hologram. So, I'm a lab rat, a representative. If you fall, Earth loses its right to autonomous development within the Galactic Accord. It becomes a resource world, overseen by a stewardship regime. Slavery, then. Guidance, Cyrex corrected. From those more capable. Marcus turned away from the hologram. Not gonna happen. Cyrex made no attempt to argue. Instead, it led him to another corridor that opened into a massive training hall. Half the size of a football field, it brimmed with equipment he didn't recognize. Fluid-based force fields, resistance simulators, dynamic terrain generators. Alien combatants trained along distant lanes. Creatures built like tanks, others that floated, flickering in and out of phase with reality. None looked remotely human. A circular platform rose from the center. Cyrex gestured to it. Simulated combat. Opponent difficulty will escalate based on performance. Begin when ready. Marcus stepped onto the platform. He dropped into a loose stance, breathing steady. Old instincts resurfaced. He could feel the weight of unseen eyes, watchers behind screens and walls. The simulation flickered into place. A 12-foot lizard-like brute with dual serrated blades. No ceremony. It charged. He moved fast, letting its momentum carry it wide, then slammed his elbow into the joint beneath its scaled shoulder. It howled. Marcus ducked a counterstrike, swept its leg, and used his boot to kick one of its blades from reach. It recovered quickly, snarling, but the opening was enough. He seized the weapon, jammed it into the soft underside of its throat, and ended the simulation in under 30 seconds. The room fell quiet. Cyrex said nothing, but the corners of its mouth curled upward. Approval? Again, Marcus said. The next simulation was faster, equipped with ranged weaponry and an energy shield. This one pushed him harder. He took a hit to the ribs and a glancing blow to the thigh before he found a rhythm. Bait, break, counter. He lured the creature into an exposed charge and threw his full weight into its spine, driving it down. 3 more followed, each more complex. He bled, bruised, learned. Between matches, he studied his enemies. They weren't simply stronger. They moved with strange patterns, trained responses, tactics built from physiology utterly unlike his. But that gave him something they didn't expect: unpredictability. His body wasn't optimized for power or speed. It was trained for adaptation, improvisation. After the final simulation, Marcus collapsed on the edge of the platform, sweat slick on his skin. Breathing hard, he noticed Cyrex observing quietly, eyes faintly narrowed. "You are not the strongest," Cyrex said. "Not the fastest. Not the smartest. But you are uncalculated." That's supposed to be a compliment. It is an anomaly, and anomalies survive. Over the next days, if they were days in this artificial station, Marcus continued training. His injuries healed, but fatigue layered itself in his bones. He observed his competitors from afar. Dozens of champions, each chosen by their species for peak traits. Some looked at him with disdain. Others didn't look at him at all. One, however, approached. It was massive, nearly twice Marcus's height, clad in sleek armor that shimmered with shifting hues. Its face was hidden behind an ornate helm, and its voice was like distant thunder. "Earth's champion," it said. "You do not look like a threat." Marcus looked up at it without rising. "Good. That's how I like it." The creature gave something like a chuckle, then leaned down. "I am Tyrax of the Urak Dominion. You faced me in your first trial. Looking forward to it." "You should not." Marcus didn't respond. Tyrax turned and walked away, each footstep like a dropped anvil. Cyrex approached as soon as the alien disappeared. The Urak are brutalists. Their champions are engineered for one thing: intimidation through spectacle. You will not overpower him. Wasn't planning on it. When the trial day came, the arena's upper tiers buzzed with activity. Broadcast drones hovered overhead. The stands teemed with alien spectators. Some wore symbols Marcus didn't recognize. Others waved banners of fluid light or pulsed music that had no melody, just mood. He entered the ring alone. The surface was hard metal, grooved with thin glowing lines. Above, a dome shimmered like glass under starlight. Tyrax entered from the opposite side, dragging a massive poleaxe that sparked against the floor. The moment the weapons touched the center ring, a sonic pulse sounded, and the crowd fell silent. Tyrax moved first, unsurprising. He struck like a battering ram, full weight behind every swing. Marcus dodged, rolled, felt the air shear past his face. He didn't try to parry. He stayed mobile, analyzing. Tyrax expected fear. He expected hesitation. Marcus gave him neither. He threw a shard of broken arena debris at Tyrax's faceplate. Not to harm, but to blind. In that split second, he darted in and landed a low strike to the back of the alien's knee joint. A dent. Not much, but enough. Tyrax roared, spun, caught Marcus across the chest with a glancing blow. Pain exploded in his ribs. He hit the ground hard. His lungs screamed. Another blow came, and Marcus barely rolled aside in time. The floor cratered. Tyrax loomed, raising the weapon for the final strike. Marcus jammed his hand beneath his armor and yanked out a hidden wire from his training suit, coiled, frayed, a leftover from his first session. He lashed it forward, wrapping it around Tyrax's exposed elbow joint, and pulled with all his strength. The alien staggered forward, overextended. Marcus kicked upward with both feet, hitting Tyrax's chin and forcing the helm upward. He seized the moment and drove his fist into the exposed throat beneath the jawline. Tyrax stumbled. The crowd gasped. Marcus climbed to his feet, breath ragged. Tyrax rose slowly, then raised a massive fist and dropped his weapon. The match was over. The crowd sat in stunned silence. Then, slowly, a ripple of sound. Cheering, curiosity, confusion. The champion of Earth had survived. Back in the corridor, Cyrex waited. It inclined its head. Well played. Marcus leaned against the wall, tasting blood. That wasn't a win. It was survival. The arena rewards that above all. He closed his eyes briefly. The crowd, the lights, the pressure. It hadn't broken him. Not yet. He had bled, and he had endured. And now they knew his name, and they knew Earth would not fall quietly. Marcus awoke to silence. Not the sterile quiet of his assigned quarters, but the eerie stillness of a mind bracing for the next blow. The pain had settled into his muscles like coals under skin, persistent, hot, never quite igniting, but never fading either. He sat up slowly on the biofoam bedding, cracking his neck as he rolled to his feet. No alarms, no summons. Just another day beneath the arena's shadow. The win against Tyrax had made him a curiosity. Not a favorite. Not yet. Curiosity came first in the arena. It was how most gladiators were introduced before being discarded. Still, it was enough to draw attention. On his way to the training deck, he passed two smaller competitors who turned to watch him, whispering in a tongue that translated as fragmented symbols over his ocular feed. Their posture wasn't hostile, just alert, calculating. Cyrex was already waiting at the platform. The being stood in its usual statue-still stance, one hand folded over the other, luminous eyes tracking Marcus as he approached. "You slept longer than your norm," Cyrex said. "I bled harder than my norm. Your biometrics indicate 2 fractured ribs and internal bruising. Shall I activate med repair protocols?" No, Marcus cracked his knuckles. "It's good to remember I'm breakable." Cyrex regarded him with a silence that bordered on curiosity. "Your next trial begins in 4 hours. Opponent details remain sealed." Of course they do. This delay is unusual. The administrators rarely extend intervals unless they're recalibrating the challenge. You have unsettled them. Marcus stepped onto the training platform. The simulated terrain shifted beneath his feet, this time to a sloped battlefield dotted with obstructions. As the simulation activated, he moved not for combat, but flow. Movement. Agility. His strength was never brute force, and he knew it. It was angles, timing, terrain. He wove between obstacles like a shadow, breathing through the ache in his ribs. In the quiet between simulations, Marcus remembered his squad, faces long buried in sand and silence. He hadn't allowed himself to think of them much, not since New Damascus. But now, in the quiet hum of the arena, their presence felt closer. He could still recall Callahan's crooked grin, Reyes' endless humming, Park's obsessive edge-checking of her blade. They had trusted him, followed him, died with him. He trained harder. By the time the alert came, he was drenched in sweat, every nerve alight with readiness. Cyrex gestured toward a corridor that hadn't opened before. The door slid back without sound, revealing an elevator with no visible control panel. Marcus stepped in without hesitation. The lift moved sideways, not down or up, and at a speed that should have turned his bones to jelly if not for inertial dampeners. The doors opened to a circular chamber he hadn't seen before. Intimate, silent, ceremonial. Inside stood a figure. Female. Human. She wore a sleek exosuit that shimmered faintly with kinetic shielding. Her hair was tied back, her stance professional. The moment their eyes met, Marcus froze. His breath caught. "Alia," he said. She nodded just once. "Hello, Marcus." He hadn't seen her in 7 years. After New Damascus, she'd vanished into black files and deeper shadows. Rumor said she'd taken a post with Earth's Interstellar Liaison Division. Others said she'd defected to a corporate warship fleet. The truth was now walking toward him in an alien arena, wearing Earth colors and a weaponized calm. "You're here to fight?" Marcus asked. "No, I'm your handler. Temporary assignment." "Why now?" She studied him, eyes sharp but unreadable. "Because your next trial isn't a duel. It's a team test. Survival, extraction, coordination. You'll be dropped in with 3 others, non-human. You'll have 12 hours to complete the objective. Failure conditions are absolute. No extraction, no retries." He exhaled slowly. "Who are the others?" Alia gestured, and a hollow display blinked into place. The first was a crystalline being with fractal limbs and no clear head. A species known as the Visceral, capable of sound-based communication and sonic disruption. The second was a hunched, 4-armed creature built low to the ground, covered in iridescent plating. Karate, a burrower species, tactical, volatile, territorial. The last was a feathered serpent coiled in midair, its scales rippling with bioluminescent pulses. Eranthe, a sentient flyer known for their strategic aloofness. Marcus frowned. They don't trust each other, do they? They don't even recognize each other as sentient. That's the point. He turned to her. "So this is diplomacy by survival? Call it a test of Earth's capacity to lead." He barked a laugh without humor. "They expect me to herd 3 aliens who'd rather kill each other across a battlefield filled with God knows what, while being judged by a galactic tribunal." "Correct." He rubbed his jaw, thinking. "And you? I'm here to remind you of who you were." Marcus paused. "I remember who I was." "Then stop acting like you've got nothing left to lose." That cut deeper than he expected. When the drop came, it wasn't dramatic. One moment he stood in a narrow launch chamber. The next, gravity seized him and flung him through a pulse corridor, spitting him out on a hostile ground. He rolled into cover, eyes scanning, heart pounding. A jagged landscape stretched in every direction. Lava vents, spires of obsidian, fissures hissing with gas. Above them, drones circled like vultures. The others landed seconds later. The Visceral hit the ground and immediately scattered into a dozen semi-solid shards, reforming mid-air with a vibrating screech. The Karate slammed into the rock and tunneled 1/2 meter on impact. The Eranthe hovered down in a wide spiral, never touching the ground. Marcus stood, hands up, palms exposed. "We don't need to like each other," he said, slowly, clearly, allowing his translator to sink. "But we do need to move." The Eranthe hissed, transmitting waves of mild distrust. The Karate growled, limbs scraping stone. The Visceral split into refracting silhouettes. Then the mountain to their left exploded. A 4-legged construct emerged, all serrated limbs and grinding armor. An autonomous hunter unit. Not one of theirs. Marcus didn't wait. Scatter and reconvene at the south ridge. Move! The Karate bolted underground. The Eranthe shot into the air. The Visceral fired a sonic pulse that fractured a nearby spire, dropping debris onto the hunter's flank. Marcus sprinted, dodging shrapnel, using the smoke to vanish behind cover. The trial had begun. They moved in fragments. Marcus relayed commands in bursts, where to bait, when to retreat, how to angle the enemy toward unstable ground. The Virellin's sonic shockwaves drove the machine back, while the karate undermined its footing. The Aranthe strafed from above, sending energy spikes through its joints. Marcus was everywhere at once, predicting, redirecting, flanking. He didn't need them to be allies. He needed them to function. By hour 9, they reached the extraction point. By hour 11, a second hunter arrived. This one was smarter. The karate charged too soon, and the construct impaled it. The Virellins scattered, singing in agony. The Aranthe faltered mid-flight. Marcus saw the shift. He charged alone. He used the terrain, climbed the wreckage of the first machine, and launched himself onto the second. He wedged his remaining fragment of wiring into a seam at its neck joint and yanked with all his strength. It bucked, screeched, then collapsed. The trial ended. Back in the debriefing chamber, the silence was long. Cyrex stood motionless. Alia entered from a side panel. "You lost one," she said softly. "I kept 3 alive," Marcus replied. "And you led." "I adapted." She studied him. "They'll see it as leadership. Let them." He turned away, walking toward the recovery wing. His body with a map of pain, but something inside had shifted. Not broken, reforged. The chamber was cold. Not physically. Temperature was regulated by atmospheric balance, but cold in the way an execution room feels cold. Marcus stood alone beneath a vaulted ceiling carved from living metal. Before him, 23 beings hovered or loomed or pulsed in silence, each a representative of a galactic high court species, each bearing the weight of centuries. They called it the reckoning. Not a trial, not a coronation, just a reckoning of merit. Whether Earth's chosen champion had proven not only individual strength, but the capacity to lead, to unite, to survive, and to obey without surrendering identity. They were not just judging Marcus. They were evaluating an entire species through his sweat, his blood, his restraint. Cyrex stood behind him, silent as ever. Alia was absent. She'd said all she needed to say before he stepped into this light. Her words still echoed in his mind. They need to see not just who you are, but why you are. Don't perform. Be. The silence broke when the Arbiter, a serpentine being suspended in a field of shifting equations, spoke without mouth or vibration. Champion Marcus of Earth, you were selected by your planetary council as representative. Do you confirm this role remains yours willingly? Yes, Marcus said. His voice did not waver. You have completed the duel of provenance, the trial of coordination, and the arena of consensus. Of 26 test vectors, your decisions aligned with acceptable variance in 24. 2 remain anomalous. Marcus remained still. Which 2? In the duel, you chose mercy when destruction was expected. In the coordination trial, you sacrificed potential victory to recover the wounded karate. I made both decisions consciously. Explain. He drew a slow breath, feeling the weight of every word before speaking. The first wasn't mercy. It was efficiency. Killing Tyrax would have proven nothing. Beating him broke the cycle. His own people saw him fall and questioned why. That made them think. Fear doesn't build trust. And the second? I didn't choose to save the karate over victory. I chose them because survival is victory. They weren't obstacles. They were allies, if only for that moment. I showed them Earth doesn't discard its own, or anyone willing to stand beside us. Silence followed. The Arbiter turned, and each counselor blinked once in sequence, an ancient sign of internal vote. Marcus could hear his own heartbeat. Then, the verdict. Earth's champion has demonstrated individual resilience, adaptive intelligence, interspecies empathy, and cohesive tactical reasoning under stress. By unified vote, Earth is granted provisional alignment. Marcus blinked. Provisional. Not full. Not yet. The Arbiter continued, as if sensing the question unspoken. This state allows for limited integration, representation, and continued observation. Full alignment depends on Earth's diplomatic stability and further ambassadorial trials. Marcus nodded once. Understood. The chamber dimmed. One by one, the counselors vanished, leaving him with Cyrex. You have achieved more than most expected, the alien said. Yet not enough. You misunderstand. Provisional status is not a delay. It is an opportunity. Now, the galaxy watches you not as a pawn, but as a variable. Sounds like a long road. All roads worth walking are. Later, in the quiet of his assigned quarters, Marcus found Alia waiting. She leaned against the far wall, arms folded, no uniform. Civilian clothing. That alone made her look more human than she had in years. So, she said, you're the most famous man on Earth and 10,000 light years beyond. Feels the same as yesterday. It won't tomorrow. He sat opposite her, every movement measured. His body still ached, but in familiar ways now. He felt functional. You knew this wouldn't end in full alignment, he said. I suspected. The Council doesn't hand out trust. It demands seeds be planted, then steps back to watch what grows. But you cracked the door. Earth's on the map now. That's something. Marcus studied her. You gonna vanish again? Alia smiled faintly. No, I've been reassigned. To what? To you. He raised an eyebrow. That a joke? Wish it were. I'm your liaison now, which means I have to stick around and make sure you don't start any intergalactic wars. You think I would? I think you have the habit of standing where trouble lands first. He chuckled, shaking his head. Feels strange. This all started with me waking up in a holding cell, barely remembering why Earth chose me. Do you remember now? I think so. I wasn't chosen because I'm the strongest, or the smartest, or the most decorated. I was chosen because I don't flinch when things fall apart. I stand. Sometimes, that's all it takes, Alia said quietly. A soft chime echoed through the room, an incoming message. Marcus accepted the transmission. The screen lit up with a familiar face. Tyrax. He looked different. No armor. No sneer. Just an alien man with tired eyes and a nod of respect. Human, Tyrax said. Tyrax, I owe you clarity. Since our match, my house has restructured. The arena broadcast changed things. You humiliated me, but you did so with discipline. You could have killed me, and I would have deserved it. But you didn't. I didn't need to. Exactly. And because of that, I am alive to speak. To influence. I will advocate for Earth among the Tarii. You are inconveniently admirable. Marcus laughed. I'll take that as a compliment. Tyrax disconnected without further word. Alia raised an eyebrow. Well, she said, you're making friends. Or enemies who pause before killing me. Both have value. She handed him a data slate. Next step is outreach. The Council wants you to accompany a team to the Karthus frontier. It's not a war zone. Yet. But tensions are boiling. Earth's first peacekeeping mission. Call it presence projection. Marcus stood. All right. One more step. He looked out the viewport. The stars didn't seem so distant now. They pulsed with the rhythm of opportunity, of responsibility. Behind him, humanity stirred, still divided, still flawed, but now watched by thousands of worlds. Every action a ripple. Every silence a message. He didn't feel ready, but he never had. And still, he walked forward.